So, oh, yeah, we're recording this as well. I'm reading a lot of this, in the newspapers or online or, whatnot, like many of you guys are. Yes, because, being the LD chair, I do have, the privilege to, sit in on meetings or be consulted or, get briefed, by various entities on, things that are going on. But I think I'm just gonna stick to, like, what I know and what I really have to say everybody knows, because what I know is what you guys all know. And that there were some very serious allegations that were put out there regarding a mailing that took place. uh Pretty much kind of getting to, like, I guess, getting to the headline of it all. If you're not aware, there were resignations connected to that. Nancy Schreiber, the chair of MCDP, announced her resignation earlier today. Of course, the previous day, the former executive director, Alexa Galloway, announced her resignation. And of course, with that, I believe John Ryder, and for those of you who've been involved with, the county party or county politics for a number of years, might know John Ryder. He was a previous executive director. I believe he served back in, I want to say, 2012 to 2017. Please don't quote me on those dates. But he's been involved for a while, so he's going to be the interim executive director. The way the county bylaws are established is that when the chair steps away or resigns or whatnot, then the first vice chair becomes acting chair, and so that individual's Patty O'Neill, and so she'll be serving the capacity as the acting chair. What people kind of wonder is, like, well, what happens next? Is there going to be election, or she becomes chair or whatnot? So the way the bylaws ultimately work is that in December there will be the county the December or winter county meeting. At that point, if Patty chooses to run for chair, she'll have an opportunity to run for chair. If other individuals want to run for chair, they can do so. And basically any board openings that happen between now and then, there'll be an opportunity for people to, run for those offices. I'm going to defer to the county party to discuss or to, put out information, to the specifics of that. I'm just kind of giving you guys kind of just really the hot take. The only other thing I want to talk about is that, when things like this happen, I think people rightly feel a lot of different ways about it. Some people are shocked, some people are angry, some people want to know how this happened, some people want to point fingers, they want heroes and villains, and they want everything in between. And while that's just kind of the way our world works, that's the way our society works, that's the way kind of things are. I'm going to at least ask all of you who are in this meeting, be you PCs, be you guests, be you elected officials, and everything in between. I just ask you guys just to be good people, because this is difficult for everybody. It's difficult for those who have, who have been impacted by this, this whole thing. It's impacted, our PCs. It's impacted, the Democratic Party, because let's be honest, the world sees us as Democrats. We understand the divisions. We know there's a county party and there's a state party and there's LDs and everything like that. But people just see us as one big entity. And so, over the next couple of days, weeks, months, yeah, we're all gonna have to deal with this in some way, shape, or form. It may be that one cranky cousin that likes to post crap on social media to get a rise out of you. It might be your neighbor who's, reading the newspaper and wondering what the hell is going on with you guys. It may be those of you who are in this particular meeting who are, have lots and lots of questions, and you want lots and lots of answers. Well, I'm right there with you, but what I think is, and how I'm going to handle this whole thing is that I'm going to worry about my role as chair. I'm going to worry about what I can do to, make my community a little bit better than it was the day before. And I'm going to worry about what we can do with LD11 and how we can be successful and how we can move the needle forward, how we can, get Democrats elected up and down the ballot. That's what I'm going to worry about. Now, I know for many people that they want a little bit more meat, and they want a little bit more to be said. But I don't think it's my place to say that, and I don't think it's my place to speculate, on what happens next. I'm going to be watching it like everyone else. So I will say this: if there are those of you who would like to at least speak with me and say, hey, you're the LD chair, and I know you've been going to meetings. I know that you probably know, this, that, and the third. I'll be happy to make myself available. We can talk on the phone, we can meet for coffee, something like that. And I'll be happy to, at least give you like my perspective of what I'm aware of or whatnot. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus on, on the really important things that we have going on. We have a lot of guests here this evening. We have Representative Ruben Gallegos. We have City Councilwoman, Keisha Hodge Washington here. We have Sarah Ligori, who's here as well. We've got our electeds, and I know I see a lot of guests and a lot of new faces. So with that being said, I'm just going to close with this. Let's be the people that we say we are. Let's be the Democrats that we say we are. Let's be the brothers, the sons, the mothers, the fathers, the cousins, the human beings that we say we are. And let's just, let's be the best version of ourselves. So with that being said, I'm going to get into a little bit of business. All right. So I'm like I said, I apologize. I try to keep my reports short, and I'll make this pretty quick here. So we got a couple of things I want to share with you guys. Next month, we're going to get more into the weeds on our upcoming fall projects, but I'd like to just kind of give you guys at least the 30,000 foot view of what we've got coming up. Because guess what? When the temperatures go down, the Democrats start knocking on doors because it's hot out there. And I know some of y'all are running for office and doing stuff. You're already out in heat, so drink water. But yeah, it's 1,000 degrees outside. So I'm looking forward to when it cools down. So with that being said, I want to talk about our upcoming fall projects to kind of close out 2023, but also get us ready to go for 2024, because it is going to be game time. It's going to be, we're going to be in the thick of election season. So the first thing that we're going to be launching in the next couple of, I would say probably the next like week or two, is we're going to start our postcard writing campaign. And this is going to be something we're going to be doing throughout, from, now until, basic ballots drop. What we want to do is we want to connect with our fellow Democrats. We want to connect with our voters in our community. And really, we found out that people like postcards. We discovered that in 2022, and people they like writing them, and people like getting them. It's just something cool about it. And so we're going to definitely lean into that project to, engage voters. The first round of people, we're actually going to be targeting new Democrats at LD11. These are going to be people who moved into our district basically around the 2022 cycle, who may not be familiar with that we exist, or like kind of where how things are. And so we want to definitely get them engaged. The next thing that we've got, we're going to do a fall fundraiser. It's going to be a pretty big deal. We're still working out the details and everything, so I can't get into like the details right now, but definitely it's going to be in October. This is going to be a big fundraiser. Our goal is, honestly, we're going to reach for the stars, because why not? Very rarely does LD11 have like a campaign office during like say a presidential cycle. Often we will work with the coordinated campaign, or try and get a corner of this, that, and the third. But we said, what? Why can't we do this? If we work hard, if we leverage our connections, and we throw a major fundraiser, why can't we have that? Why can't we have the funding to really do this thing right? And so that's kind of what our big goal is. It's going to, of course, what our big goals is, of course, having a campaign office for the presidential election, but also we want to expand our mail program that we used in 2022. If you're not familiar with that, we did a mailer and we hit about 20,000 Democrats in the district during the 2022 election. And I would say that we saw an impact of that. For those of you who were following along the election returns, I like I said, I wish I took a picture of the tweet and I'll put it on my wall. But the data guru was saying, hey, you know what, day of election, Democrats in South Phoenix that they voted by mail. This 9 o'clock drop is going to go towards Kari Lake, and it's going to be a closer election. Well, you know what happened? Those voters went for Governor Katie Hobbs, and those 20,000 mailers that we did, I guarantee you that's what got those people to vote for Democrats. So we're going to do it again. We're going to do it bigger. Let me go ahead and wrap up because I'm getting on a roll here. So we're also going to continue our LD social hours so that we can get together, hang out, get to know each other. But we also want to bring in new people to be a part of that. One other project is our Blue State Outreach, and what that's going to look like is that in the past we have had our neighbors who are bright blue states come and volunteer in states that are purple, moving towards blue to help wherever they can. We want to actually coordinate with those people because for years I have random people call me from Oregon and California, and they just start randomly knocking on doors. So I want to better utilize that energy in a focused manner. So we're going to start reaching out to folks in those districts or in those states and the Democrats in those areas to see if we can have a little bit of a coordination of like people who are going to drive to Arizona so we can make sure that they're helping us and being effective. And last but not least, we want to definitely work with progressive organizations, that share our values, because frankly, they sometimes can get into places we can't, because sometimes people see Democrats and they kind of, clam up, but maybe some of these organizations, they'll open a door because, hey, when they win, we all win. One last thing, and I'll go ahead and hand the mic over to our first vice chair. State committee meeting is coming up. It's going to be Saturday, September 9th at 9 a.m. If you're a state committee member, check your email. You should have gotten your registration. Check your spam folder, junk mail, or something like that. Also, if you're wondering where those emails might come from, they're going to be invitations at mail.electionbuddy.com. That's how they do the registration. If you are a state committee member and you haven't, if you're a state committee member and you have not received any kind of information, please reach out to me directly and I'll see what I can do to help you out. And I've talked way longer than anybody you should who, is chair of an organization. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to our first vice chair, Dave Braun.
First,
I think Dave, you're still muted. You get some feedback here.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can, but you got feedback. So let's see how it goes.
Why don't you go on to the next person until I fix this?
Okay. All right. So next up is our second vice chair, Michael Butts.
Good evening, everybody. Please excuse me for my camera being off today. I am preparing for a early morning flight with the family to Ohio. We had a family death, and so we're going to be flying to Ohio here about 4 in the morning. So I just wanted to come on real quick and say that we are planning some great things for the remaining rest of the year for our social hours. And so we are looking to really collaborate and connect on a social level besides the business of our democracy. So this is where we build those genuine relationships to get to know one another. And so we're excited about that. And I did also want to make sure that if anyone is interested in being a precinct committee woman or precinct committee man, please let us know, reach out to us so that we can build that coalition and effectively reach the precincts in our district. The third thing I wanted to say is that if you know of any particular restaurant owners here in District 11 that would love to host us to come together and have a social hour, please send me their information. I would love to reach out to them and connect with them. And so we're excited to branch out and highlight those businesses in our district that are looking to get involved as well. So with that, that's all I have, and I'll turn it back over to our chair. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Michael. So this is my annual plug, is that we're like the Beatles, but we're missing a drummer. We're like the Temptations, but we're missing a temptation. We're Gladys Knight, but we're not the Pips. We're like the Pip. We need a secretary. And so if you are interested in putting up with my bad jokes, trying to keep up when I ramble and our executive board meetings and you like writing stuff, hit me up because I'd love to talk with you. Here are the qualifications. You gotta be a PC of LD11. You gotta be able to put up with like really bad dad jokes, and you are down for getting Democrats elected. So if you're interested, I'll drop, of course, my email in the chat. So hit me up. I'd like to talk to you. So that being said, let's go ahead and move over to our treasurer.
Oops. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes, we
Okay,
can.
good. All right, so the last time we had our meeting was in May, so I created 2 reports, one for June and one for July. So in the beginning of June, we started with $2,452.83. And then the ending bank balance on June 30th was $3,214.41. And as you can see, we raised $1,210 and spent $315.26. The main part of our income we had a $1,000 donation from First Chair Braun, and I appreciate him donating a check to us. And the rest of the donation came from ActBlue, which was mostly a recurring donor. So we rely on small donation. We don't get like help from the DNC, State Party, or the MCDP. So if anyone want to be a recurring donor, we'll give you a link. And our expenses includes mainly our monthly fees for Zoom, MailChimp, ActBlue fees, and Google. But we did spend some money for a table for the Juneteenth festival and provide water and postcard for the Juneteenth event. And you can see the breakdown there. All right. The link is in the bottom too, if you guys want to donate. And as you can see in July, since we didn't have a meeting, it was less busy than June. So we only raised $225, which all of them came from ActBlue and mostly from recurring donors. And we spent our $107.60, which came from our monthly fees, which includes our MailChimp, Google. So nothing really new for July. And here's our link to donate.
All right, and we'll also drop that in the chat. So we'll get that out to you in just a moment. All right, thank you, Sadia. And now let's go with our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Robert Branscombe.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you. I did have a report for you this evening on some updated news, but Chairman Brown kind of stole my thunder, but that's okay. But I just want to add that, in transition, that we're going to be Democrats, as the chairman said. We're going to do what we need to do to get out and get the votes, make sure that people are aware and be steadfast in our beliefs. With that said, I have nothing else to report this evening, Chairman Brown.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I know most of y'all didn't come to listen to me make, jokes about, the 2022 election. Y'all are here to actually see some of our guests. So let's go ahead and move into our guests here. So first up, do introduction. If I can find the right screen. Oh, here we go. All right, so
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
may I make a brief report?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I think I finally fixed the mute situation. And it will be brief. Just a couple of observations that are driving me a bit crazy. first of all, there are 33, now 33. There were 34 participants, and I congratulate everyone for showing up in the middle of August. That's a pretty good turnout. I guess we're all stuck inside, escaping the heat. I have noticed recently that Donald Trump, his defense apparently is going to be that he's exercising his free speech rights. Well, no, he is not. Basically, he's asserting that, you know, if he's Al Capone and says to his buddy Joe Schmo, I want you to go whack Lucky Luciano, that is a simple exercise of free speech. No, it isn't. It's a conspiracy to commit murder, and he will go to the electric chair if the murder is carried out. That's what Donald Trump is asserting, that he's merely exercising his free speech. No, he isn't. If he calls upon a mob to attack the Capitol on January 6th to intimidate or force the vice president to recognize phony electoral college submissions of Republicans and states that Joe Biden won, that's not simply exercise of free speech. It's a conspiracy, basically, to overturn the election illegally in a violation of numerous laws. And that should be short shrift on that whole issue of free speech. You may have read in the paper that a number of abortion providers, Planned Parenthood and ACLU and some others are about to submit and start the process of a constitutional amendment for the 2024 general election ballot. They need 383,000 good signatures. Essentially, they need to collect 500,000 signatures to get this constitutional amendment on the ballot. It's an enormous amount of work. And I suspect that relatively soon we're going to be hearing from a speaker urging us to participate in a lot of walking and a lot of knocking on doors. But it's important. And it's important because we've seen with the turnout with abortion issues, just like we saw yesterday in Ohio, that it is an enormously effective way of getting Democrats out and getting Republicans who will vote or can be persuaded to vote for Democrats also out to the polls. You know, presidential elections are always high turnout elections, but getting our people off their rear ends to actually vote may help finally for us to put a Democrat in the U.S. Senate, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing from Rubin tonight, and possibly taking one or both houses of the Arizona legislature. It is doable. It's going to take work, but it really is. I mean, this is where we've been working for 20 and 30 years to have a viable chance to swing the legislature. And now with the Democratic governor, it is really something that can be done. And with that, again, I congratulate everyone for showing up. It's going to be a pretty, you know, the first primary elections are less than 6 months away. Thank you, Patrick.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Okay, so like I said, we got some guest speakers here. I want to introduce our first guest speaker. She is the Honorable Keisha Hodge Washington. She is the City Councilwoman representing District 8. So, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. I will do my best to be as quick as possible. I'm going to cheat a little bit if you don't mind, and I'm going to start off with my office updates, and then I'll transition over to GoBond real quick. Thank you again. As Patrick mentioned, I am the council member for District 8. Is everybody seeing my screen okay? Okay, perfect. District 8 overlaps significantly with LD11. Like many of you, I am a PC for LD11. On the council, I serve on the community and cultural investment, as well as the subcommittee, as well as the city's audit committee. I'm going to do a quick plug for the office related items. I encourage you to check out our homepage, subscribe to our newsletter, and I'm excited to announce our upcoming event includes Energize 8. Energize 8 is an organized forum for community members and neighborhood leaders to voice their concerns, have small group discussions with department representatives, and learn what steps are in progress and make their own recommendation. To provide flexibility, there are going to be 3 opportunities to participate. There Monday the 14th at South Mountain Community College, Wednesday the 16th at Saguaro Library, and Monday, August 21st at Levine Educational Center. They are all from 6 to 8. You can choose what location and time works best for you. I'm going to drop in the chat real quick the RSVP form, and we're only asking individuals to RSVP so that we can ensure that the proper individuals are at the meeting so that you can get your questions heard. Okay, apparently I didn't factor in that if I am, oh wait, I think I do it this way. There we go. All right. The information should be in the chat. If it didn't work, I'll do it after I stop sharing my screen. Next, I'm going to move over to the GoBond. One of the first initiatives responsibilities that I accepted shortly after being sworn in was to serve as the co-chair for what is called Invest in Phoenix. It is the campaign that was formed to support the GoBond. Because city resources cannot be used to support a ballot initiative, a public campaign is necessary to inform Phoenix residents of the program. Invest in Phoenix is the campaign vehicle, and I have the responsibility, along with John Graham, the CEO of Sunbelt Holdings, and he's on the board of directors for many local philanthropic organizations. Invest in Phoenix is the campaign committee focused on ensuring the passage of the $500 million GoBond on election day. Yes, November 7, 2023 is election day. That's when we will vote on the GoBond propositions, as well as the school district bonds and overrides as well. I'll go over really quickly what the GoBond includes so that you can inform your neighbors. I know it's PC, where many of us are neighborhood leaders, and I want to make sure that we're informed so we can share the information with our neighbors and those that we come in contact with. What is the GoBond? The GoBond program provides a mechanism for the city to fund construction and rehabilitation of city facilities and infrastructure such as parks, libraries, fire stations, streets, and storm drains. I try not to read this. I'll try not to read the slide, but the image shows that it simply is an opportunity for the city to take a loan out in the amount of $500 million, or as much as been approved by the electorate, and issue that accept that funds from investors so that we can build the infrastructure that's necessary. It is called a general obligation because it is the repayment of this responsibility can come from any avenue or any revenue that the city has. It's not limited to a certain source. It can come from operating revenue. It can come from tax revenue, from whatever source. All bond programs require voter approval, and they cannot be used to fund operating costs like staff salary and assets that are not owned by the city. So this is a direct investment in city-owned assets. Since 1957, the city has approved bond programs totaling about $4.6 billion. The last GO bond was approved by the voters in 2006 for $878.5 million. This 16-year gap is the longest in city's history. And as a result, we have some significant unfunded capital needs from our perspective. So moving on to how was the bond amount decided? How did this $500 million come to be? It came to be, there was a financial capacity committee that was established by the city. And they had to consider a number of factors, such as what are the actual capacity, the financial parameters, what are the capacity for maintenance of these items, what would happen, what would the bond rate and effect, I'm sorry, how would the city's bond rate be affected by this? And what could the residents take? So $500 million was decided or was recommended by the committee because it would not increase our secondary property tax rate. That is what they use right now to pay outstanding debt expenses. And it also would not, we don't think it would affect the city's bond rating. So that's how the $500 million was determined. So in other words, if this bond passes, many times you're wondering like, how would you repay this? It'll be repaid from the property taxes, the secondary property tax that homeowners in the city of Phoenix pay. And you can see on the sheet, it's about 8141 per every $100 of assessed valuation on your property. And the goal is, you'll see that the committee also recommended that this is, if we do it in this kind of, these types of increments every 5 years, we do it $500 million, we can continue to do this every 5 years to invest more meaningfully in our city. And we could do this without increasing our tax rate. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. And if there's any questions, I can try my best to, you can interject if you have to ask right now, but there will be a question process. So how were the projects determined? There was a general obligation bond committee, and then there were 8 subcommittees. Those 8 subcommittees heard over, they had 34 meetings and heard over 1,000 resident comments, and they ranked the projects. And they recommended them to City Council, and the Council approved their recommendation as presented. You'll see a breakdown to the right of what constitutes the $500 million. Arts and culture is about 50 million, economic development, education, 38 million, environmental and sustainability, 26 million, housing, human services and homelessness, 63 million, neighborhood and city services, a little bit more than 44 million, parks and recs, 64 million, public safety, 132.5 million, and streets and storm drainage, $81.5 million. Because our statute, Arizona revised statute, requires that the bond issuance be affirmatively approved by the voters. So we have to present it to the ballot. Sorry, I have to present it in a ballot. And under the statute, you cannot group all of them in aggregate. However, you can group what they consider like propositions together. So you saw there were 8 subcommittees. So the request has been approved. The ballot proposition language has been approved by City Council after consultation with Bloomberg and legal to present them over 4 ballot initiatives. So you'll see 4 questions being sent out in the publicity blank pamphlet, as well as you will see 4 specific questions. And I'll go over the language of the question, and we'll talk about some of the projects that are represented in each of the questions. So the first question you'll see, and this is the exact language that you'll see on the ballot proposition. There's also one additional language at the bottom that repeats itself. I chose not to write it in there, but this is what the first one is: 214 million for fire, police, roadways, and pedestrian infrastructure. So this is in essence going to fund your public safety and your streets and storm drain projects. So public safety, let's also switch over to that. You'll see the projects that are going to be funded in there. It includes a fire station, the extension of the community assistance program. That is a program that helps individuals or community members in their time of need, whether it's following a fire or it's after an interaction with law enforcement. It is meant to be an extension of a already successful program. It is bringing it to more stations. It also includes the replacement of the Cactus Park precinct that is in District 1. It includes the installation of a fire station in District 1 as well as the renovation of a warehouse, the police property management warehouse, and the renovation of the Maryville Police Department. For streets and storm drainage, you will see it includes the implementation of Vision Zero citywide. Vision Zero is the pedestrian safety initiative that the city has adopted, and that would allow us to adopt and improve our roadways, to improve for better visibility and reduce our pedestrian fatality. It also includes some equity-based transportation mobility implementation. That's another initiative that is about expanding the availability of transportation, public transportation in those areas that need it more. You'll see Lavigne flood mitigation project. That is an LD11, as well as the Honokana drainage program that is also here in LD11. One of the things that you will see as a result of being so close to the mountain, we have runoff issues, and many times we don't have adequate drainage. As we have more and more construction in the area, we also see more and more flooding in the area. So this would allow us to provide for more safer and a more effective runoff so that you're not flooding our homes. It also includes from pavement maintenance supplements. So some of the streets that we see need to be paved so that we can move forward with things such as our cool pavement project. Before you can put the cool pavement down, you have to make sure that they have proper maintenance. And it also includes some storm drainage replacement throughout the city. So that's what question number 1 covers. Question number 2, it talks about improving the quality of our life in Phoenix neighborhoods, and that is for $108 million. And this is our parks and recreation, as well as our neighborhood and city services projects. So you will see the projects that are included in that include ADA accommodations or improvements to many of our city facilities. Unfortunately, many of our city buildings do not have proper ADA access. And we need to make sure that the buildings are available to all residents of all Phoenicians. So it does include some of that. It also includes some of our historic preservation from a neighborhood and city services. Dropping down to parks and recreation, it provides funding. It provides funding for park minor capital projects. Many times you'll see at a park, there's a swing set that's broken, or you see they want to add some level of equipment to the parks. If it's an asset, they have limited funds available to provide those type of assets for like a sunshade. So this would provide them with some funding to provide what we consider minor capital projects so that it can be more responsive to the residents' needs. It also provides for the Recreation Center Esteban Park, which is in LD11. It also includes, we will see some splash pads also in LD11 at Harmon Park. Harmon Park is going to get a regional pool. There's going to be splash pads at Grant Park and Alcara Park. And there's also South Mountain roadway safety enhancements. It's to make our roadways a little more safer from that component. There's some other things, but most of them don't relate to to our district, so I'm going to skip over it. Next, we have question 3, which is efficient and modern Phoenix to live. And this is our arts and culture, economic development and education, environmental and sustainability projects. So that is 114 million, and you can see the projects here. I'll also drop in the link, the actual document where you can see all of the projects. You can see when those timeframes would be, when those projects will be implemented, if it is approved. But the arts and culture, I want to talk real quick. There are some of the cultural facilities will be equipment replacement. We will see expansion of the Children's Museum of Phoenix, which is also in LD11. We also would see Rio Reimagine land acquisition. It would also include the construction of the ASU Health Technology Center. We would be providing some funds towards that. The Spark area land acquisition, reuse and redevelopment strategy implementation. And then from the environmental and sustainability, it's making sure that our city facilities have the energy and water efficiency upgrades that are necessary to make us more efficient, as well as some heat resiliency investments, as well as brownfield redevelopment programs for city property that have environmental concerns. And it would also include city facilities, vehicle electrification stations. It would help us become more green as a city. And then our last one is focused on enhancing and preserving the supply of affordable housing and senior centers of $63 million. And that one would allow us to preserve more of our affordable housing here. It would also establish the Cesar Chavez Senior Center in LD11, as well as provide gap funding for affordable housing project that is in LD11. And they will also provide with some innovation and affordable housing as well. So I'm happy to say that we have been steadily trying to get the endorsement and the support of many individuals because we really believe that the $500 million investment in the city of Phoenix is worthwhile. We have the support, of course, of the mayor and the majority of all but one member of city council. We also have the support of many of the unions as well as community organizations. And I'm most proud to say we have the support of many legislative leaders, including our LD11 leadership. So at this juncture, I will go ahead and open it up for any questions. I'll also drop in the chat the link to the information about these programs any further. But our goal right now is to make sure we will begin our more aggressive informational campaign as we get closer to the election. But this is just to make sure that everyone has the information. So if there are any questions, I can entertain them at this time. If not, I will thank you for your time.
Okay, do we have any questions?
I tried to make it quick. Hopefully it wasn't too painful.
Oh, no. No, this is important stuff. It's like this is where we live.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So Councilwoman, thank you very much. We'll just so everybody else knows, you know, the information here. If you missed anything, our meetings go on our YouTube site, so you can always get a recap, and we're going to include everything, you know, that was discussed when not in our Sunday newsletter. So if you missed any of that stuff, that'll be there. And of course, as more information develops on this, we will definitely make sure to share it out to our community. All right. Okay, so if you guys haven't heard, Representative Gallego is a new parent for the second time, and he's got a really cute little girl. And you know the thing about like babies, they don't care about stuff like this, and and she wanted her daddy, and so unfortunately, Representative Gallego had to go, you know, work with one of his most important constituents, but he wanted me to share with you guys that, you know, he's going to come back. We're looking at having him coming back next month. But he did want to say that, you know, he would like to sponsor our fundraiser. So this is absolutely really amazing. I think it's gonna be fantastic having Representative Gallego, you know, help sponsor our fundraiser. And so, yeah, we got work to do, and we'll definitely have more information about, you know, the details of that as we get everything put together. So that being said, we're gonna go to our next guest speaker tonight. It's gonna be Sarah Liguori. You guys may be familiar with her. She's a former state legislator, but she also works for an organization called the Arizona Community Foundation. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Sarah the floor, and she's going to talk about some information about housing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for having me. It's great to see all like the new faces, and there's new friends and old friends in LD11. So really thank you for welcoming me in. And I'm going to present on housing and homelessness. I started presenting this to my district in LD5. I have a lot of experience on the real estate side. I've worked in finance and economics. And when I was at the legislature working with Rep. Quinones, I didn't have the pleasure of working with Senator Miranda or Representative De Los Santos, but you know, housing was one of my top priorities. And so now the Community Foundation, I've been able to continue in that realm, but I've also invested the last 18 months of my life to just really understanding the problem, how we got to this juncture. And so I compiled all that information and data to share with you all. And so I've been going around to LDs that care about this topic and then presenting on it. It's lengthy, it's long. I tried to cut it, but it was hard for me to do. So I'm going to condense it, and I'm going to share the slides with you all. And then I will be around during and after this presentation for any questions. So with that being said, I'll jump into it and share my screen. And then just if there's any issues or you can't see it, let me know. But I like to call this presentation Arizona 2.0, and setting the tone for what I'm going to go into is I'm a native from Arizona. I've lived in Phoenix about 15 years, and I'm from Tucson. And the first thing I want people to wrap their minds around when we talk about our housing and homelessness crisis is that we are in a totally new era here. Our affordability is gone. Our cost of living is gone. We wanted to act like big kids, and now we are big kids as the 5th largest city in the country. And so with that come all of the big kid problems of being a big city, and it's hit us very long and steady, but also very rapidly with the pandemic. And so I'll talk about that some more. So Arizona 2.0. I'm going to talk about how we got here, where we are now, what are some of the macro effects if we don't address this affordability crisis, and then what are some real solutions that we all can work on and help do our part to solving these crises. So the first thing I'll start with is very relatable, the chicken and the eggs. I think everyone remembers the time when they went to the grocery store and either there were no eggs on the shelf or the eggs were now $4 to $6 to sometimes $10 a carton in some stores. And what that was tied to was that 43 million hens caught avian flu. They were now out of the egg producing population. And so there is a very low supply of eggs and still a consistent demand. And so the remaining eggs were now very expensive. I want to add that that's exactly what we're experiencing here with our housing crisis, similar supply and demand issues. So in looking back, how did we get here? We're 15 years, 30 years in the making to where we are today, but the two big time points that I want to touch on is one, policy. So SB 1070 came through and had a huge devastating economic effect on top of all of the negative effects that Arizona was in the spotlight for passing this legislation. It's estimated that 100,000 undocumented residents left the state that year because of SB 1070. And a lot of those residents were in the construction workforce. So the state took an economic hit, not just from losing a large tax paying base, but also the workforce that was directly in the real estate and home building space. That year, we were also hit with the double whammy of the Great Recession. So 250,000 construction jobs relatively evaporated over a 12-month period as home building stopped overnight. Home building didn't start to tick up and construction jobs didn't start to come back until about 2012. So it took a full 4 to 5 years for that to start to see a measurable increase. And then it wasn't until 2017, so almost 10 years after the crisis, where we're just starting to get back to building the houses and having the construction workforce that we had pre-crash. So the 2010s essentially put us in a very, very deep hole. We were very far from the starting line that we're now just starting to climb out of on the supply side. So where are we now? I like to joke like we're number one. Maricopa County has been in the top 5 spots for places for people to relocate consistently over the past 6 years. So the last 3 years with the pandemic, we all know that everyone rushed to Arizona because they weren't tied to their offices or their cities that were very expensive. We had a low cost of living, we had land, we had great weather. And so it was really exacerbated during the pandemic, but it started well before then. And right now, what we're seeing is about 75,000 new residents this year. We had about 64,000 the year before and 56,000 the year before that. So we're consistently growing. And that translates to 200 new residents a day coming into Maricopa County. And then on top of that, we've done a very good job from an employment standpoint. And the employment growth in Maricopa County is at a 2.3%, where the national average is 0.5. So we're doing really good things, but we're growing up very fast. And this is what I call what we're experiencing right now is the makings of a perfect storm. So what Arizona's experiences is all of these various variables coming together and really creating hindrances and burdens that are directly affecting affordability, the supply, and then adding to the homeless population. So if you look at some of these, we have economic development where we've pivoted and done a really great job at diversifying from just being a real estate city and industry. And now we have microchips and data warehouses. But with that comes a lot of new workforces, a lot of new jobs and stress on our housing supply. We have regulatory barriers. So we have zoning issues that are creating financial and timing barriers for projects to come online. We have low inventory. There's 40% fewer home sales year over year in Arizona. We have NIMBYs that are, saying we don't want these dense projects or these affordable projects in our backyards. We have urban sprawl where we're growing out instead of growing denser. And the two factors at the bottom are people are stuck. So no one is moving right now. And we're seeing that like in real time today, very strongly, where almost 92% of all homeowners have less than a 6% mortgage rate. So people that don't have to move are saying, why would I move if I have a 2.5% mortgage and I'm going to be paying more, but essentially getting less and also paying more interest at a 6 or a 7% mortgage rate now. So there's houses that are just stuck on the sidelines where people aren't moving. STRs and investor-owned properties are also a huge problem, removing inventory from, traditional home buyers. Statewide, 1.4% of our housing inventory is short-term rentals. I believe it's about 1.6 for Phoenix, if I'm thinking of that correctly. And then 1 in 4 homes has been sold to an institutional landlord. So not our neighbors, not our friends, someone from Wall Street coming in and taking up a huge swath of this inventory. Perfect storm. Which leads us to where we are now. Arizona is, this is not a good statistic. We're the 4th undersupplied market in the United States. So a lot of cities are experiencing this, and we are at the very high end because of those perfect variables all coming together from various angles here. Our rent has increased so steeply and so significantly in the past 3 years. Metro Phoenix has seen almost a 70% increase in rent. What that translates to is you need to be earning $25 an hour wage in order to afford a median rent in the cities now. In 10 years, new home prices have increased 2.5 times. So that's where I go back to this Arizona 2.0 of, when I bought my house in 2015, I got a great price. 5 years later, though, we could never have afforded our starter home. We could never have afforded the house we're in now. So that sharp increase in housing prices has also hurt a lot of purchasers and home buyers. And then recently, last month, a national poll came out where Phoenix was rated 110 of 150 best places to live in the country. And a lot of those responses were directly tied to Phoenix as to unaffordable now. We don't want to live there. So if I were to break down our housing crisis as a math problem, I would say that our supply does not equal demand. And that's a huge play in what we're experiencing right now. So we need 270,000 housing units statewide just to keep up with what our population growth has been. Phoenix needs 163,000 of those. We have single family permits down. Multifamily permits are ticking up this year, I've seen recently, which is good. But evictions are also up 22% year over year in the last 3 years. And we've had 2 months this year, January and last month, where we've seen 7,000 monthly evictions, which is the highest that they've been since the recession, 2 times already this year. And the 4-alarm fire bell that I'll tie in at the end is that vacancy rates in Phoenix are below 3.9%. And statistic models have said if you have a vacancy rate under 4%, your city is in severe position to be chronically homeless and underhoused for a very long time. So to me, that's a huge red flag that if we are hovering under 4%, it is going to be very hard for us to get out, and our homeless population is going to continue to grow. So quickly through these on the home buying side. So in 2019, which is like the end of Arizona 1.0, 65% of Phoenicians could afford to buy a home. 3 years later, that number has dropped from 65% to 18% can afford to buy a home. On the rental side, here's a list of what average rents are around the city as of 3 or 4 months ago. And what that translates to is if you're making $80,000 a year, then essentially 23% of your income is going towards your housing needs if you're living in the Phoenix metro. And 30%, if you're spending 30% or more on housing, you are at the threshold for housing overburden. And so that number right now is 62,000. If you're making 62,000 and paying 1,500 in rent, you are housing overburden financially. And the other biggest stat that I love to talk about is 10 years ago, 90% of Phoenix metro rents were less than $1,000 a month. I paid $800 for a very long time for my wonderful 1-bedroom in Central Phoenix. Now, less than 10%, I think it's closer to 6 or 7% of rents are less than $1,000 a month. And so that is just shows you where our affordable housing inventory is essentially all but gone. Don't worry too much about digging into the numbers here. If you just want to look at the colors, what this chart is showing us is the major Metro Phoenix cities, the salaries and occupations per job. Can they afford to buy, which is green, rent a 2-bedroom, rent a 1-bedroom, or neither? And so in August 2020, Arizona 1.0, If you were making, 50 to 80,000, you could buy a home in most of the major cities. You could rent a 2-bedroom and you can rent a 1-bedroom just fine. In 2020, so just 2 years later, we see that the purchasing power, if you're making less than $80,000, you can no longer buy in the city that you work in. You are not able to rent a 2-bedroom if you're making less than 55,000. And a huge swath of our friends, our neighbors, ourselves, the people we interact with on a daily basis are all but cut out from renting or buying in the cities that they're working in. This is retail, teachers, firefighters, police officers, like the green is gone. And there's only a certain threshold that's able to rent now in some of these cities. So what that translates to me is if you can envision like the housing ladder going up, where you would have you'd rent a place, then you'd buy a starter home, maybe a fixer upper, and then you'd buy a larger home or a forever home. You were always going up the mobility ladder in home ownership. Right now, that ladder to me is upside down, and people are falling down, and they're falling down fast and hard. And to climb back up it, I see the rungs as being farther and wider apart. So it's harder for people to climb up the ladder now too, because of the costs. So this current shortage is affecting all types of housing and all types of income levels, from the starter homes to the forever homes to the rentals. But what we're seeing right now is those on fixed incomes are sliding farther and faster, and which is why we see our seniors as the fastest growing unsheltered population right now. Because of their fixed income, any changes in that rental, they are not able to keep up with it, let alone if it increases 20 or 30% in a matter of 18 months. So I wanted to do a deep dive on LD11 and kind of talk to you about what are some of the affordable housing projects that you have in your area. And the good news is I found quite a bit outside of these projects highlighted here. I found another 400 units. So I think you have about 600 units. And that's from 2015 till now. So there could be more that just weren't on the Arizona Department of Housing site. But you have a new project that's just came online, the Village on Rozier. And you can see where these affordable housing projects, these are LIHTC, the low-income housing tax credit projects, which are really the only way that affordable projects are getting built these days. The people that live in these communities have the security of knowing their rent is not going to experience any increases. So they're essentially, their rent is capped, and they have the security of knowing that they're not going to see year-over-year increases. So I put some of those prices there because they're very great to see. You can get a 2-bedroom for $1,000, a 1-bedroom for $800 in some of these affordable projects. And also they look beautiful. I don't know if any of you have been to any affordable projects or might live in one yourself. They're very well done with a very wonderful community feel to them. You have a couple senior community villages that UMOM has done. So 90 units is the South 7th Village. And then coming online is Sunland Flats. It's supposed to be opening, I think, any day now. It didn't look like they were actually open just yet, but it said summer of 2023. And it's a beautiful project with a pool, a community center, and it's right in the heart of LD11. And that's going to be 90 units that are, again, going to have the security of knowing their rents are not going to be increased year over year. They're going to be affordable rents. So jumping out, let's go like 5,000 feet to timing on this and how that's affecting generational ripple effects. So anyone that purchased a home prior to 2019 has seen a $200,000 plus equity gain in their home. So if you were able to do that, congratulations. If you were in college, just coming out of college, too young, whatever it might be, you are now locked out of the wealth generating power of home ownership. And so what this is doing, especially, I like to emphasize Gen Z, who has student loan debt and has lived through a recession and graduated at a time of high inflation. We're seeing almost 50% of 18 to 29-year-olds are living with their parents, which means they're not potentially starting families, they're not purchasing homes, they're not doing all the things that in the past people have done in order to generate wealth, in order to own a home, or at least have more money saved up that they're not spending all on their housing. There's also really big racial and economic inequality issues at play here. In 2022, white buyers were 88% of home purchasers. And so instead of closing that gap between white and Black home ownership, it's really driving it apart, which is the exact opposite of what we want to see. So white home ownership right now is at 73% and Black home ownership is at 40%. And again, we're removing and we're creating very long-lasting systemic inequality issues for marginalized communities, for people that don't have access to funds. We're essentially saying it's harder and harder for you to get even into this pool. And then the lower income areas always bear the brunt of the affordability issues. So on the rental and eviction side, lower income areas had steeper gains in sales prices and rental prices, and 72% of evictions were in lower income areas. And that is always a pattern that we see because people that are less financially secure don't always have choices to say, well, my rent just went up, so I'm going to move. They're more trapped in their choices of what they can do because of their financial constraints. And so they're bearing the burden of this, of these increases as well. Okay, I'll go quicker. The economic impact. I talk to people, you know, they say, I own a home. I don't have friends that are, you know, struggling to buy or rent. And I tell them, well, no one is insulated from this affordability crisis, even if you're not directly impacted by it. It's estimated that Arizona is going to lose $36 billion in wages and GDP due to lost economic activity, translating to almost 300,000 jobs, $2 billion in lost tax revenue, and then a real dollar amount of $4,600 in wages in everyone's pocket in the state. And that is due towards people spending more on their housing, less in outside of the home, goods, services themselves, taking job training, moving up their career ladder, whatever it might be. This inaffordability crisis is really going to start to affect GDP. Even on a national scale, it's estimated at $2 trillion is what the country might lose if we don't get our arms around this affordability. So a couple things that we can do. I would love to have like all of these plates spinning at the same time. There's no one solution. So can we help stop people from sliding into homelessness? Can we keep people in their homes as the humane and economic solution first and foremost? Can we look at regulatory reform? I know this is going through the city councils right now. There might be some model ordinances and there's some text amendments that are going through, but looking at ADUs, looking at decreasing parking, can we utilize small lots, build higher density, get single room occupancy, get duplexes, triplexes, encourage this type? Because a lot of the zoning, what it does right now is it creates a financial constraint toward affordability, and it creates a barrier for even affordable developers to come into the marketplace. Can we get creative with our building and incentivize tiny homes and build on top of laundromats and city libraries and church properties and build denser near transportation? Can we get community support? So for all of us to come out and support affordable projects and encourage them to be built in our communities so more people have access to affordable places to live. And then we need more funding. So we need more LIHTC, we need more gap funding, we need the business community, philanthropic communities, the state. There's a lot of federal dollars that can be captured in Arizona too. And then we need to build single family homes, multifamily, low income, all of it. We need to just build more. So thank you for bearing with me. 2 more slides. The takeaways. Highs are going to remain. Building, land, interest rates, and demand is all going to be at highs. So those are variables that we cannot control. We need to look at the math equations and have supply and demand come more in equalizing amounts. And we need real wages to keep up with the real cost of living these days. We need to turn the ladder up so that people are not sliding down, or at least stop the slide. And then we need to look at regulatory changes across the state to build denser, to build smarter, and then for all of us to be a part of those changes. And then also just remember that there is no single solution that's going to get us out of this crisis. There is no, one silver bullet. It's going to take massive coordination, collaboration, and leadership. And the last thing I'll take away is there's been multiple studies done, and this ties back to the chicken and the egg. And Greg Colburn wrote a book and studied all the data of all the cities experiencing homelessness and not experiencing it. And he said the 2 biggest factors to tell if a city is going to have a major homeless population and chronic problem is looking at the rents and the vacancy rates. And so I want to leave you with that as kind of tying it together of we are experiencing super high rents and a very low rental vacancy rate. And so that concerns me as a state that we are going to continue to see the unsheltered population grow. We are continuing to see evictions rise until we can fix the front end and the back end of this problem. And then also, what do you want to do? If you want to help, that's always the question I get at the end of this presentation. Well, what can we do? Channel some YIMBY vibes, go support affordable projects, go to your village planning commission, sit in on those meetings, understand what ADUs are, accessory dwelling units and single resident occupancies. Go to your city council meetings, support your housing, your pro-housing elected officials, ask them, where do you stand on housing? How are you going to make a difference in helping alleviate this crisis? And then support pro-housing policy too, so that we can really get a number of these solutions deployed at the same time. It will make a difference. And that is what I'll leave with. And any questions from here or after, I'm happy to take as well.
Pat, I have a question.
I'm not sure who said that, but
Oh yeah, go ahead, Esther.
Turn off your- Oh, can you hear me, Pat?
Yeah, we can hear you. I don't know if like both you and both you and Randolph want, so somebody's got to mute because I think we're getting a feedback loop.
What I'd like to know is, can you talk a little bit about the reason for all of these rent increases? Is it just greed from the landowners, or what is the reason that these rents went sky high?
Great question. I tie it back to supply and demand. So we don't have enough housing, but we've had a huge influx in demand to Phoenix, mass emigration into our city in the past few years because of the pandemic. And what landlords are seeing is, wow, I have a lot of demand for these projects and a lot of these people have nowhere really to go. So therefore, because of the supply issues, I can raise my rent. What we're also seeing on the new builds is that in order for them to pencil out financially, and yes, I'm not going to deny that a lot of it is greed and pushing the limits on their side for sure, is that there's nowhere else for people to go. The housing market is so tight that everywhere you look has long waits. So you either stay there and pay it, or your options are very limited. And for a lot of these projects that are being brought online, and I noticed this 5 or 6 years ago, pre-pandemic, is they have to charge a lot in order to pencil out. You have the cost to go through zoning, and there's been a labor shortage, and there's been a shortage of supplies and wood, and all of the materials have been very expensive. And then there's been a shortage in labor, and labor has been very expensive. So all of these kind of tie into new builds are all very expensive because of the costs have all increased substantially, interest rates, inflation. And then because we don't have enough units, we're scarce in units. Those that we do have, they've said, okay, well, we're just going to raise all the rents because the demand is so high, so we can. That's the two approaches I look at.
I have a question for you.
Hi, Robert.
How are you doing?
Good.
I noticed that you put out a lot of figures out there and a lot of numbers about housing and costs. If you didn't know, I've sat on the Levine Village Planning Committee for 6 years and chaired it for 3. So I'm very aware of the housing crisis.
Okay.
One thing that's not been talked about is income, the
Mhm.
actual wages for them. Now, you said there was increase of home, evictions up 22%. That means that those 22% of people were working probably, but couldn't afford to live in the house or the apartment that they were in already. What are we looking at as far as trying to make sure that there's a living wage for our people in our communities to afford these? Because as you said, the developers and the landlords are taking advantage of this. And the city is trying to push as many projects through, most of the time, projects that shouldn't be where they tend to build because of the area, and the community is very upset about that. So what are we doing about increasing wages or talking to employers about that?
Yeah, that is a huge point, and that's why I say if there's two math equations we need to look at, it's not just supply and demand, but we need to look at wages and the cost of living, because right now, the cost of living has skyrocketed compared to what income has been. So there's been a concerted effort to reach out to employers and hold them accountable. It's a trickier question than just saying, okay, well, we need to build more and we need more units. We need buy-in. I know that there was a big fight that a lot of you were probably a part of to push for, the fight for 15. And, right now I'm like, we need the fight for 25. We need to hold, these businesses and these large companies moving in here accountable to understanding that their workforce, their communities they're moving into, their wages are not keeping up with that. So I don't have a specific answer for that right now, but I'm working on that to try to see how can we help get the wages and the real income to keep up with the cost of living and inflation.
Thank you
All
for your
right.
answer.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
may I add a couple of things to Ms. Ligori's comments? Just in terms from the legislative perspective, so that we know that individuals who are blessed and fortunate to be in these positions are actively addressing the issue. I'm really proud of the fact that this particular year, I was able to get 2 bills out of committee that directly align to what Ms. Ligori's talking about. The first one was to create a first-time homebuyer program. And that was, I was able to get that through the Appropriations Committee, which would have allocated $8 million to establish a fund for individuals to work with their cities and their counties to then become first-time homebuyers. And I will tell you, this is what I heard on the floor in terms of why I was not able to advance. What I heard from the majority was that that is too much of a noble cause. And that is how you that is how you ensure that we obtain the majority. So I want to say that out loud because I think it's important that that's sort of what we are dealing with. And so we're going to talk about 24. We're working on 24, but even in 23, we're trying to address these issues to ensure that our everyday neighbors, our friends, and our family members have access to home ownership. And that's what I heard on the floor after getting that bill through committee. The other one that I want to reference, and Ms. Ligori talked about this, we've got projects here now, the 11, that are LIHTC, which stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credits. That program is scheduled to expire at the end of 25, which means that all of those projects that are being built specifically for to create affordable housing, it's going to be more difficult to build them because then the developers don't have an incentive to create those projects. I was able to get another bill through committee to extend the LIHTC program through the end of 28. So again, you get it through committee, good, it's making noise, but then it never saw the light of day. And so as a legislature, as a body, we were not able to vote on those. And so I didn't mean to divert, but I just wanted to address that in terms of like some of the work that's taking place at the legislature that directly addresses the things that Ms. Ligori was mentioning. Those were a couple of examples, and there are others, but those are the ones that I'm most familiar with because those are the ones that I was particularly pushing.
okay, well said. Sarah, I want to thank you for sharing this information with us because I mean, we know there's a problem. I mean, those of us who live in the community, we see the problem, but sometimes just seeing the problem, you also got to understand what the problem is and really how widespread it is so that there can be a solution. So thank you for sharing that information. If you could you drop like your contact information in the chat? I see some questions and I'm sure people may think of some stuff after the meeting. So if you could drop that in the chat so they could reach out, reach out to you to ask those questions. So I know folks, we're getting to kind of the home stretch of the meeting. We got our state legislators here. I see a few other electeds on the call. So I want to give them an opportunity to give some updates, let us know kind of what's going on in their respective capacities. So legislators, I'll let y'all decide who wants to go first. And let's hear about the longest session, I think, in state history. Is that accurate? Okay.
Hi, Patrick. This is Senator Miranda. Let's see, let me turn my video on here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, awesome. First, I want to thank you, Patrick, for being such a good leader. You mentioned you got to be humorous You're good at uniting us and updating us with information, and I really appreciate that. There's been great updates from Keisha to Sarah. These are all the pieces of the puzzle. And unfortunately, then all of a sudden politics, just like Representative Quinones says, things happen over there. We have the plan, we have the solutions. I had a homeless bill that was pretty much a seamless homeless bill that passed the Senate, went through committees, got approved in appropriations, and then died in the House. So unfortunately, the politics always creeps in, and that's why it's so important for our elections in 2024. And Patrick, if you just can keep reminding us of what districts we need to help flip this legislature, because it is frustrating, you know, coming back to the legislature after being out for 5 years. It is extremely different, and we need to not skip a beat. I sometimes just feel like we're being treated as rag dolls. I mean, they let us out for 8 weeks. We didn't know what was going on, except I heard that a few of the Republicans had some trips to make, and they were going to be back August 1st. So from that to maybe effectively planning how they were going to move Prop 400, which there was some success in that. I want to thank the MAG group in the city of Phoenix for doing the hard negotiations with that. My focus for next session, after really dissecting the homeless crisis and having the boots on the ground in the zone and actually talking to the different types of homeless people, the different reasons why they're there, I learned so much. So my next, for next session, my focus will be the SMI population, the severely mentally ill, because there's so many dynamics. You could have an individual on fentanyl or meth that look like they're mentally ill, and then right next to them, not on drugs at all, but severely mentally ill. So it's important to communicate with providers and leaders of these providers and the city, which I've stayed very close with, working well with them, putting an assessment team out there and just having that diagnosis and then following them on their path to rehabilitation or back in housing. Sarah, thank you for this presentation. That was amazing. I'd love to have that copied. So that's where we are, really. The bottom line is we have a good group of Democrats in the legislature. We have to flip it in order to get things done. And we're going to get there. I'm ready. So let me know what districts you need me and my team at, Patrick, and we're ready now.
Oh, I have a list for all you guys.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you, Senator. Representatives, Representative Quinones.
One more thing. I'm sorry, Patrick. One more thing, just an update on the Black Caucus. I was able to launch the Black Caucus. And now I gave the baton over to Representative Cruz. So she and I are now co-chairing the Black Caucus. And the reason I did that is because there was no representation there at the legislature. However, in District 11, we have the highest percentage of our African-American community. So what we're going to do is, since we have no members except for herself as an African-American, we're inviting the community to be our members. So any of you that are interested in joining the Black Caucus, come and talk to Representative Cruz or myself. We're just trying to create a structure of how to launch it and get the word out to District 11.
All right, thank you for that information. All right, representatives, I let y'all go next.
Thank you. I'll just add a couple of quick things, quick hits. So yes, this was the longest session in the history, 204 days. I think it closed out last Monday, and it did close out with the victory really for Maricopa County and all of Arizona through the passage of Prop 400. For those of you who might not remember, Prop 400 is a 0.5 cent sales tax that is incorporated here in Maricopa County. And that half-cent sales tax goes to build infrastructure, transportation, public transportation, freeways, and roads projects. The important thing to know that is that this will not be an increase in taxes. This has been going on since 1986. And every 20 years or so, the voters have to approve it, meaning that if we had failed to activate this, because this one is also going to expire at the end of 25, we would have felt the impact because our roads, our freeways, our public transportations would have stopped. The important thing is that we were able to get it through the legislature, and now for LD 11 and all of Maricopa, we're going to have to vote yes on Prop 400 when we get it. So Councilwoman Keisha was talking about the GO bond. We're going to have to vote yes on that, but we're also going to have to vote on Prop 400 when it comes back. And then LD, I'm excited that we're all talking about next year, but if there's one word to keep in mind for 2023, it's veto. And that's because Governor Hobbs did over 140 vetoes because the majority was intent on attacking our community and attacking our rights. And thankfully, because Democrats got activated last year, particularly here in 11, we were able to have the governor be the backstop so that none of that bad policy could get out. So the word for me this year is veto, and that's because of the work that we were able to do as Democrats. And I'm looking forward to a strong 24 with all of us at the helm.
All right, thank you, Representative Quinones. I see Representative De Los Santos. Did you want to share anything with us?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Sarah, for that fantastic presentation. Democrats, this was my first rodeo down at the legislature, and frankly, it was nothing short of a disaster. There were a couple wins that we were able to get here and there. The very first vote we took was actually to increase the aggregate expenditure limit, which freed up $1 billion or so for our public schools. And the last vote we took was also a victory on Prop 400 that Representative Quinones just explained. So that was terrific. But in between, it was a giant waste of time in terms of the Republican Party using taxpayer time and taxpayer resources to push a far-right extreme MAGA agenda that they knew was not going to help Arizona and that they knew was going to get vetoed. I sit on two committees, the Natural Resources, Energy and Water Committee, and time and again, we saw, frankly, massive corporations go in there and present bills that their lobbyists wrote and that Republicans were voting for that consistently put the profits of corporations over the health of our people and our planet. And I found that to be unacceptable. I also sat on the Elections Committee where absolutely no Democratic bills were heard, where it was nothing but a Donald Trump, Kari Lake conspiracy theory love fest. They introduced legislation to literally install Kari Lake as governor. They talked about the fact that Joe Biden somehow is not the real president of the United States of America. It was frankly anti-democratic and disgusting to see. We have a lot of work to do, and that is precisely the opposite direction that we should be heading in. I also have the honor of serving as the co-chair of the LGBT caucus, and we saw about a dozen, frankly, cruel, homophobic, and hateful bills that have no place in our society and in Arizona that should be open and equal to everybody. So as Representative Quinones said, I am very thankful and grateful that Governor Hobbs was ready with her veto stamp to veto the hundreds of awful bills we saw from the extreme right. But the fact is that the veto stamp is only the first step. If we want to see progress on housing, on homelessness, on ensuring that people who are experiencing seriously mental ill disabilities, if we want to make progress on the environment, on equality, on democracy, on ensuring that our schools are fully funded and more, we must take the majority, and we can. Only months ago, we re-elected Senator Mark Kelly when people said that electing a Democrat from Arizona to the US Senate was impossible. We did it. We defeated Kari Lake and elected Katie Hobbs when we hadn't seen a Democratic governor in decades. We did it. We elected a Democratic Attorney General when people said that Abe Hamadeh, backed by Donald Trump and the MAGA right, was going to win, and we won by 280 votes because people like you were on the doors and on the phones and on sending text messages and making phone calls. Everything you do matters. We elected Adrian Fontes and defeated a Secretary of State candidate, Mark Fincham, who is beyond bonkers and off of his rocker. We did it. And now, Democrats, we are just 2 seats away from flipping the legislature. We can do it. We can do it. We are on a roll here in 2018, in 2020. We're going to defeat in 2024, again, send Carrie Lake back to whatever dark corner of the internet she came from. And we are going to elect Ruben Gallego, the next United States Senator. We are going to take the House. We are going to take the Senate. We're going to have Senator Miranda in the majority, Representative Quinones in the majority. We are going to keep passing these bills, but it's going to take work, and that work begins now. It begins early, and it requires our effort, because believe you me, the far right is getting organized. The far right is seeing the writing on the wall, and they're beginning to spin up their campaigns of dishonesty and disinformation so that they can defeat the Democrats. But we're going to do it. We've got a terrific ballot initiative on abortion that just launched yesterday. So we have a lot to get excited about in 2024. And I thank you so profoundly from the bottom of my heart for the tireless and unpaid work that you all do. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Patrick, if I could just add to that really quick.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to make a prediction for our agenda, what's going to be on our agenda in 2024. First of all, I believe we are going to flip it. And on the agenda, when we are the majority, we're going to spend the whole session repealing so many bills from so many years back, repeal, and introduce all the bills that we've always wanted to get introduced and get to the governor. So that's going to take the whole session, because right now we are in a budget shortfall of about $170 million. We're broke. For next session, we have no money. We usually have a budget for operations that range from $15 to $17 billion. But of course, you've heard the voucher story, and that's looking to cost close to $1 billion. So we may not have extra money in the budget next session. But the hope is the flipping in 2024 and having a repeal party. My prediction.
Hey, well, you know how we do that? We elect Democrats.
Exactly.
Because we've got the ideas, and we've got things that people want, people need, and what will, help folks. So, Representatives, Senator, thank you very much for the update. Thank you for really the inspiring words, so that we can really be energized to do the work that we do. We are getting, like I said, we're near the end. So for those of y'all who've been hanging on, thinking like, hey, it's getting kind of late, man, you need to speed this thing up. We're near the end of the meeting. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hop to our announcements. So if anyone has any community announcements, now's the time. Please keep them to like a minute, because I'm sure some of y'all want to maybe catch on some Netflix or go to sleep or get something to eat. So please just unmute yourself. If you have an announcement, please, now is the time.
Chair Sandra Kennedy.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for posting the notification to the newsletter about the proposed merger of Fry's, Safeway, and Albertson. It was a very informative town hall that was held at First Institutional Baptist Church last Tuesday night. And we had a room full. I was very surprised, but very glad to know that people came out to hear what the AG, and I am so proud of her and all the work that she is doing, our AG, Chris Mays. And if you are interested in knowing or interested in commenting, if you would go to the AG's website, and there is a link where you can post your comments about the proposed merger. We know that we'll probably see in this area in LD 11, if the merger is successful, we're going to see desert. We're going to call it desert landscaping or desert big boxes. So we don't want that in our area, but we need to be more vocal about what goes on in District 11 and what is taking place, not just here, but around the state in Maricopa County. And I want to thank especially Senator Miranda. She has been a trooper. She sponsored the very first fraternities and sororities license plate bill this year. Unfortunately, we didn't get it through across the finish line, but she worked very hard at getting it through the Senate. And I want to give kudos to Representative Quinones for his support in trying to make sure that those in the House were very supportive. But I want you to know that we'll be back next year, and I hope that we'll have the same support from Senator Miranda and Representative Quinones. Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to have a few moments.
All right, and thank you for getting that information to me. Thank you for getting that event, because this is a big deal for communities like ours. So definitely we got to show up, we got to show out, we got to speak up. Any other announcements?
Patrick, I have an announcement.
All right, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Reggie Cario here, Phoenix Elementary School governing board member for Phoenix Elementary District number 1. We're just turning 151 this year, so it's a big, huge thing to celebrate. A big thank you to all of our Phoenix Elementary residents who were able to vote and approve our bond, our $91 million bond override. In addition to that, that's helping fund a lot of our initiatives that were happening, that we're starting this year. 2 years into the making is our Phoenix One Family Resource Center. We just opened up that last week, so Phoenix Mayor Gallego was there to do the ribbon cutting and just officially open that. We say it's a family center, but it's a family and community engagement center. We're offering resources to our community, very much trying to copy the model of Creighton School Districts, their family center that they have. And so if you are interested in partnering with our resource center, it has opened up in our iconic historic Kenilworth school site at the basement. We renovated that. It's been a year in the making, and you can contact, and I'll put it in our chat, Erica Graves. One of the first events we're putting together will actually be at Bethune Elementary School site, and that will be a district community health fair where they'll do COVID vaccines and booster shots and other health screenings. Again, that's at Bethune Elementary, and I'll drop the link in the chat for where you can see our family center and all the events that are coming up. That's August 12th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then in addition to that, we're having a bunch of backpack giveaways planned, stuff like that. So I'll put that in chat. But again, if you are a nonprofit, a community leader, an elected official, and you have any resources you want to partner with our district, you can message Erica Graves, and I'll drop the email in the chat too. So thank you, everyone who funded that bond, $91 million. We got it approved, and it's going towards opening spaces like this so that we can continue to be the backbone of our community like we've been for 151 years. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Reggie. Any other announcements? Going once, going twice. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Except lots of great information, lots going on, even more that's going to be upcoming. I do want to, leave you all with just 2 final thoughts, and then we'll call it a night. The first one, it is still very, very, very hot outside. It's, even though it's getting a little bit cooler, it is still dangerously hot. So please drink water. Please take care of yourselves. If you got to go outside, be prepared, but also know that there are members of our community that, are not in the best situations either. They may have ACs that are out or on the fritz, or they may be unhoused. So just, if you can just show a little compassion, if you want to, hook them up with a case of water, or, direct them to some of the many like cooling centers that are out there, please do that. Because like I said, we're, our community is got a lot of folks in it, and we're a better community when we take care of each other. That's my first one. My second thought for the night is that, we got a lot on the line with this upcoming election, and it starts today. It doesn't start, doesn't start in January, doesn't start in February, it starts right now. And so the thing is that I would say it's really easy being a Democrat, because when people say, what are you guys about? It's like, hey, I'm about people being able to afford where they live. I'm about, kids being able to go to a school and get the resources that at a school for everyone. And so the thing is, we don't need to like take the time and, say like, oh, well, the Republicans are this, the Republicans are that. The thing is, we got so many good things that we can talk about that we're about that can actually help people. And that's what we should talk about. And that's what we should encourage our neighbors and those who are going to, be voting in these upcoming elections for, everything that's coming up. So like I said, we're going to be talking a lot about that. There's going to be a lot of great things coming up in the next, couple of weeks. And I look forward to sharing all that with all you guys. So have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Good night.